and welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, affectionately known as the Money Lady for 40 years now, and if you can believe that. I am officially a senior and a baby boomer, Black, obviously, a woman, definitely, and incredibly grateful to have been professionally educated in the fields of biochemistry, scientists, and economics, international economics, which gives me an interesting perspective about life and about people and about systems. And the purpose of this show has been for the last almost 14 continuous years, has been to educate and empower you, my viewing audience, so that you can begin to make the decisions for you and your family that count. Now, and I say this with a strong caveat, and that is that given the profound level of misinformation, hyperbole, disinformation, and no information, meaning the things we should want to know about, we don't. Why? Because internet is selective in information it grasps. And again, media follows the path of least resistance, and people like bad news. It's a fact. Humans thrive on bad stuff. So my role as the money lady is to make sure that you get good, sound information, which is precious right now, so that you and your family can make the necessary moves to thrive and survive. That's my goal. That moves me to come to this station, DATV, headquartered in Dayton, a pioneer for over 25 years in the whole area of communications. It's an impetus for me to be able to do this. I hope you can appreciate what that means, because people are not telling you the truth. You got to read so much stuff. You got to piece the things together. And then if you've never been taught how to look at a thing objectively without a whole lot of overlay and opinions, I don't care about a person's opinions when it does not validate. And when I say validate, it's got to line up with the facts, the data. I'm not moved by somebody's emotional tirades about who and what and when and where. I'm looking at data. And if that data suggests that things are moving in a certain direction, then I'm going to be looking even closer. Period. I will also say to you, because I look at issues of integrity. Are you a liar? Can I trust you? Can I count on you, even in the most difficult of circumstances, to tell me the daggone truth so that I can begin to make those necessary steps? I think that's the minimum required today. Or else just shut up. Don't say anything. Listen. Those 2 ears. Process. The brain. Speak. Maybe, but most times, maybe not. Okay? And please, I'm enjoying some turmeric ginger tea, which cleans out your tummy and helps your immune system. You should check it out. And stop drinking pop, which is full of sugar and stuff that the human body can hardly tolerate. I know, I'm going to die of something, but you don't want to die from cancer. Jesus. Ugh. And some of this other stuff that's out here because of what humans have done to the planet and to the things we eat that were healthy but went through a change. So, congratulations on dialing in. Today's subject matter that I'm going to deep dive is Medicaid. Now, for those of you that are not on top of Medicaid, get on top of Medicaid. Google Medicaid and learn something about this most powerful taxpayer gift to those who don't have much income. Did you hear me? This is not a program that is available to anybody whose income is too much. They target people that are poverty-stricken, indigents, children of people that don't have coverage, traditional. Many children's hospitals are funded heavily by Medicaid programs because the children that come in for care cannot afford, the parents can't afford the fees. So they're dependent upon this federal state program to pay the bills associated with their limited income. And it's a powerful program, okay? To the tune of over $900 billion. I would say that's a powerful program. And it's been effective. I didn't say not abused, but I will say it has been effective as a part of the total schematics of people that are struggling. The two primary groups of people that use this program, which is now the troops are circling around, the politicians are involved, that's never a good sign, and decisions are being made that are not, in my opinion, encouraging. Let me tell you philosophically, and let me be so clear about it, so that you can just deal with that right now. America is not a country of a lot of wealthy people. Majority of Americans struggle and work a job. Some cannot because of physical challenges, health issues, etc. But because the American taxpayer is committed to helping people that are less fortunate, I mean, we donate, we give blood, sweat, and tears for people that have disasters. We also provide this product program for people who cannot pay for their health care. I would have to say that a large number of senior citizens fall into this category. It's not like they asked for it, but the reality is that their income, Social Security, is not sufficient to cover their expenses. And therefore, this is what we have going on. Now, misconception, I've said it over 25 years. Medicare, which is health care for individuals over the age of 65 and individuals who deal with Lou Gehrig, who have kidney challenges, those people are under Medicare. Also, people of any age who've been on Social Security disability for 2 years and 1 day. They're eligible. Now with Medicare, again, that is a program that working people pay into. Every pay period, if you look at your statement, you'll see money that's paid in to Medicare. Your employer also contributes to Medicare, but this is a program that was developed under Lyndon Baines Johnson, I think in 1965. I'm not clear about the dates this minute, but it was an answer to so many people losing everything due to health issues. So under the original Medicare, they would cover a large portion of your hospitalization, less so for your doctors, you'd have to pay in. But compared to prior, it was a godsend. Now, that's Medicare. Now let's look at Medicaid, which is again another non-contributory by the individual, but it is a taxpayer-funded plan that covers people that do not have health coverage. Children, primarily the elderly, and there are many others. The reason I say the elderly is because the majority of the elderly in nursing homes that expense is being covered by Medicaid because they can't afford it. After their little checks from Social Security, there's not much left. So they would come up under Medicaid. Now, I want you to note the two least powerful groups of people get the most funding. Children don't vote. You better remember that. Children don't vote. And the elderly probably won't vote. And yet these two groups have great needs, particularly the elderly, because my gosh, after the age of 60, and that's not elderly, but after the age of 60, things just start going sideways. And you're like, what the heck is happening to my body? Well, it's not like a car where you can replace the alternator when it doesn't work. It's a human body. And many times, there's no recovery. There's no restoration. But all of these things cost. Medical care costs. Hospitalization costs. Rehab costs. All of those things cost. And if they are not eligible for Medicare, and many are and many are not, those who are eligible for Medicare, we call them dual special needs, and they get funding through the traditional Medicare apparatus and Medicaid, which means they wind up paying very little, if anything, for anything, versus the regular senior who's dependent upon Medicare. It may be a supplement and maybe not. It just depends on the situation and the person's circumstances. But I bring all this up because these are the things that cause people great angst, and hospitals as well. As I said, in Cincinnati, Ohio, Drake Hospital. My God, that's a big boy. And they're closing September the 1st of this year. I won't even tell you the number of people that have come through that system. I also will not tell you the number of people on Medicaid that came under that system. Okay? Millions of people have gone through that facility over the years. It's a lot. The closure of that hospital hit me hard. Why? Because I had a great uncle who has now transitioned, but he was at Drake. And the care at that time, and I do know people have said all kinds of things about care, and I tell them care is a function of the doctor, and it's a function of the nurse, and it's a function of the facility. Okay? If you got bad doctors that don't give a crap, if you got bad nurses who just don't give a crap, and if you got a facility whose policy and vision is not conducive to the well care of the patient, you got a problem. But with Medicaid, many of these hospitals are dependent upon payment from that apparatus to cover for the services they rendered to that individual. Now, and I say that as we speak, Medicare is okay for right now. Medicaid, however, is not. And this is why. This is simple. This is simple numbers. I told you children can't vote, seniors can't vote, and like it or not, the majority of poor people, people that don't have a lot of resources, it has been established statistically, they don't vote. So if you don't vote, and this whole entire system is predicated upon let the voter speak, and you don't speak, then somebody else is going to take it and run with it. And that is exactly what is now occurring as we speak. The House of Representatives passed early in the hours of the morning the big, beautiful tax bill, which essentially eliminated Medicaid. Yep. And people, I was telling people over and over, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, although it seems like I'm always the bearer of bad news. But your mother is probably on Medicaid at that nursing home. Well, yeah, we can't pay for it. Right. Well, we need to know who's going to pay for it when funding stops. Who's going to take care of mom or dad or your uncle or your aunt? Or who's going to do this? And before you say, well, I guess the family, no, thank you. No, sir. Nope, I don't think so. So, what are you going to do? Well, I will tell you right now, that needs to be on your planning horizon, which is who is going to take care of mom or dad or other family members that are using this particular program. Because a decision is getting ready to be made. Oh, it's going to be a thought decision. I mean, the current administration wants to shift the money that was being spent for that program, that over $900 billion, and that's going to come in the form of additional tax cuts for the rich. Now you say, well, why would he give them additional tax cuts? Because they're rich and because they give him money and they make donations and contributions and they play golf and they do things. And the poor do nothing. And that's a problem. For real. That is a problem. If you do nothing, believe me, this is what you get. Nothing. So, the balance is, do we continue to fund Medicaid despite all the brouhaha, or do we look at cutting Medicaid except for certain situations and certain requirements to offset that money and make sure that the very rich get the tax cut? Do they need it? Not in my opinion, because if you're a billionaire, you're going to be a billionaire forever. I mean, really. And as Franklin D. Roosevelt told his millionaire buddies, he's rich himself, he said, if you all don't help these people, and this is when he was making his pitch for Social Security, which was unheard of. They were like, no. He said, yes, yes. Because if you do not help these people by using the tax revenues that we're going to assess on you to come to us to allow them to build bridges and dams, etc., he said, these people are going to be looking at you a la the French Revolution. And it was just like a light bulb went, bing! Got it. Well, there's no bing over here now. If they get the tax cut, whether they need it or want it or anything, it's going to come at the expense of those least able to do anything about it. Period. What are the elderly going to do? What are children going to do? Or even the working class that's on Medicaid, because it is an income-based program. And if you meet the qualifications, it does not matter what else you got going, you would be able to get that service. The generosity of the U.S. taxpayer is incredible. I had a difficult conversation with a peer because with Medicaid right now, if you have a home and you are receiving benefits, and people say, well, they didn't touch the home. Well, they're waiting for her or him to die, at which point they will pursue recovery. And I had a hard conversation, made me want to cry, because there was one family member that was still left in that home. And yet the home was entitled to other family members who were on Medicaid. And I don't know the outcome. I don't even want to know the outcome. I know what the law says and what the requirements are. And that is, if they don't dispose of that asset, then the state is going to recover. Why? Because Medicaid is a combination of funding from the state that you live in, that you're receiving the benefits, and the federal government. They contribute. Now, I know in the state of Ohio, it has been a terrible situation and a budget killer. When you look at the state of Ohio and where the money is going, it's all out there. But the state is paying a disproportionate amount of money to care for the elderly in these facilities, and lesser so with the children. But my point is that unless there are revenues coming into the state heavily, the state cannot afford it. And that is what's happening in Ohio. All right? Let that sink in for a minute. Let that sink in. Because it's real. Okay? It's real. And you want to know, well, how are they going to pay for mom? They're not. If the federal government defunds and all of the funding becomes a state issue, then that's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. The state can't do it. They cannot do it. The revenues coming in from taxes is not enough. So I bring this to the table not because people have an issue with whether a person is poor or not, but who's going to pay the tab? And will it meet the needs of the tax-paying base in that state? Not just Ohio. They all have Medicaid. And it's a crushing budgetary issue, notwithstanding all the politics of defunding, but just on the face of it right now. If there's not enough money coming in to do this, then you are going to find that many, many people are going to lose their benefits. Now, is that right? Or is it wrong, or does it matter? Truthfully, I feel that it does matter. I feel that out of the billions that we have, we should be willing to cover coverage for the less able. I feel that. I feel that morally. I feel that not everybody makes it to the end with a stack of money. There are many people through the course of life who have sickness. And sickness, as you get older, seldom gets better. So, without any kind of insurance, how do they meet the need? That's where Medicaid comes in. Not Medicare. Medicaid. And Medicaid also funds nursing homes for long-term care. They do that as well through the patient. If the patient has Medicaid and the facility is Medicaid approved, that person can actually live there and get their bill paid for every month with minimum contributions from them. I didn't say a free ride. I did not say that. But I did say this is what we're looking at today. So my question to you, viewer, is how do you feel? Because one of the things they're looking at on the Senate side, the House bill passed, squeaked by one voice, but the Senate is still looking at this. And that is the issue of work requirements. Should a person be required to work to receive benefit? Well, the majority feel they should be required to work. Now, that sounds good, looking at it on paper. But the reality is, perhaps they're not able to work. What happens then? That's something to consider. There are many people, particularly people with kidney malfunction, COPD, diabetes out of control. They cannot work. We know children can't work. But would that make a difference if they had to work to offset? Will they make enough money on these jobs to offset their monthly benefit from Medicaid? I'm serious. It's a nice little chunk of money. Now, mind you, you don't get to use that chunk of money any old kind of way you want. No. You're on the government's payroll. And they're going to be examining your stuff closely to see if they need to provide the benefit at all. Now, we can say whatever we want to say, but this is how it works. So let's talk about where Medicaid really, really, really hits hard. And that is in our poor communities. Yeah, the poor communities, farm and rural communities, which many of them are below poverty. Okay. And mountain people. Yep, people do live in the mountain. So, to the extent that hospitals in rural communities are almost non-existent now, if they get sick, they got to get a car somewhere to get to the largest community city that has a hospital. That will take Medicaid. Now, you don't think that's scary? A woman's pregnant, or she's had a problem pregnancy, and she cannot get help, and she has to make that drive, or somebody has to drive her into that situation. You don't think that's significant? You don't think it's significant when mom lives in a rural community, in a farmhouse, and God knows where, but she gets sick and she has to be serviced? What's going to happen here? How is this going to look? And how's it going to look for you if you are in that situation in a rural farm community? I don't know. I don't have answers. But I do know that if you have any sense among yourselves that you would want to talk to your senator representing your district. Yep. So, this is what I've been pondering, because for some time I've looked at this. I have been involved with Medicaid for many years with families, and it's a terrible feeling when you cannot, because of circumstances that were totally out of your hands in many cases, okay? Sickness will put you in a place like that where you will lose your ability to earn a living. Mental illness will put you in that place where you're not able to function cognitively. And nobody wants to touch that one. Nobody. Because it's painful and it's real. So, I've been looking at myself, what can be done? And why are those benefits so expensive versus Medicare, traditional Medicare? What happened? Well, I will tell you, for one thing, what happened was that people realized that no matter how well-intentioned they were, this is a bill that is going to be paid by her, whether she likes it or not. That is absolutely sad. But it's true. So what does one do here? Is there any responsibility of the family, the community, the neighborhood? Does anyone have responsibility for this person? Because it's real. I don't know. I really don't. But I do know this, that most families whose parents or grandparents are getting some form of government subsidization, known as Medicaid, most of them are not capable of taking care of themselves. So the fact that we would think that they might be able to take care of their parents is absurd. Period. So, here we are, deep dive. The Republican House made it abundantly clear that that product was on the rocks. It's down in the Senate, and frankly, they don't want to touch it. But they're trying to figure out how to do this taxation thing. Because if we take from one pot and give to the other, the pot that it's been emptied from, what is the impact going to be? What is the impact going to be? So, let's look at this in a little more detail. And it gets into philosophies around democracy, philosophies about who can pay, who can't pay, and how to meet the shortfall. Well, one thing that I kind of imagined is that we would have a fund that would allow people to contribute into this fund to provide for medical care. We would not look at the various opportunities to pay for people's care through grants, etc., but that we would look at the everyday citizen. And that is, do we want to continue to pay for people who may never contribute to the wealth of this country? Is that off the table? If they're not going to be able to contribute ever, is there something inherently wrong about that? I know in China, it's a communist country, so health care is free. But they are so funny about poor people. And it's not in a good way either. Okay? That's why they have them begging, asking for food in a communist country. They want to ignore them. We'd like to ignore them too. But the principles of democracy mandate that they be given the opportunity to do better. They can go to school. They can tune up on certain skill sets. Okay? They can make money in non-traditional ways. Okay? But remember what I said. It's a question of, do we take care of the poor or do we take care of the rich? Because the rich will ensure that we get reelected. Okay? The poor will not. The poor won't even vote. Period. So who do we take care of if we're politicians? Well, the poor may not vote now, but if you do something like that, they may vote you out of office. So that's kind of the dialogue that's taking place now, which is we don't want to go up in smoke over this, because that's what it's starting to look like. We're going to lose re-election if this bill goes down like this, because numerically there are a lot more poor people in America than rich people. And there is a lot more opportunity to create havoc if you're poor. I don't know. I don't know. But I do know this. I personally would have no problem whatsoever with them continuing with the Medicaid. If they're going to have a right to work requirement, then you provide some level of training. You provide some level of support. You provide something that will encourage and help them to become productive citizens if their medical conditions are not so bad. We've got to be willing to look at a lot more than their ability to work, a lot more than judging them because they're getting this kind of assistance. I mean, it goes back to food stamps as well, for real. Why is it wrong for a person to get food stamps as a part of those resources and tools that they will need to survive? And I've had people say, oh, they just need to get a job. Well, you know what? In America, when manufacturing was here, that's a possibility. But unless you're willing to export or deport them to countries that need their skill sets, which currently are zero, what do you propose? And that's my frustration. Don't put stuff on the table and you're not willing to give us schematics. So if Granny at 70 is on Medicaid, what kind of support can she expect to get? I don't know. I do know this, a 70-year-old woman is not going to be able to do much. A 70-year-old man, same way. Younger people, different situation. But let's talk about the bill that's now in the hands of the senators and being prepared for what that's going to look like and making some decisions yourself about, do I write a letter? Do I do an email? What do I do to let them know that this is unsuitable for me? And we need you to do better. Okay? We just need you to do better. And what does better look like? Better than what we're talking about. Because if you do, in fact, cut the funding or put a mandatory work requirement because it sounds so politically nice, but totally impractical on top of everything else, then what do you recommend, Senator? I'm getting ready to have that conversation, by the way, because I hate when people presume certain things about other people. I do know that rural poverty is not the same as city poverty. Okay? And you can say, well, they chose that life. Well, not necessarily. And even if they did choose that life, what does that have to do with impending legislation that would benefit them in the city or out there? Where are we coming from here? So, there we are. What are the solutions? What are the options and the opportunities? I would like to see, there was a time where people that were working poor could go through training to get additional skills to improve their situation. I don't know what happened to that. I don't. But I do know that since we're on the precipice of a whole new technology, AI, artificial intelligence, as well as a whole new way of delivering information, that those are skill sets that could be met. But then you're getting into program funding and all of that. And that can be a challenge if you have no money. But I'm putting these things out to you so you can think about it. And so when it knocks on your door, and as I've told family members and others, oh, this one's going to knock on your door. I have a lot of family in rural. And it's tough now, but it's soon to be tougher. And this is something that all of you viewers need to be aware of, because I know all of you got family members in rural communities, family members that are barely making it. And we're going to have to do something, because this is not going away. It's not. It's not going away. And it has to deal with not just the poor, but all those who are coming into those ranks. Because as corporations begin to downsize and lay off and not replenish, how long do you think it's going to take for a former employee, having exhausted their unemployment, that's a year, but in another year, when the program is completely off the table, they need help? Okay, now before you say, but there's no proof that companies are going to lay off people, madam and sir, we are looking at some times we have never seen in economic history. We are looking at political conditions that have never existed in our economic history. We're looking at the potential loss of millions of jobs. And these people are going to have to go onto that type of a system. if they cannot get on their feet. And before you say, oh, that's not going to happen, excuse me, it happened already. It's happened a couple of times, called the Great Depression, called 2008 with the real estate crisis, called Detroit in bankruptcy. I was there, and I never believed what I would see. All those GM people that lost their jobs, all those Ford people that lost their jobs, and their families were migratory at night. I'm talking about in the U.S., where we are right now, with all these people in North Carolina. I mean, did you not forget about the hurricane and the floods that are everywhere? These people are not going to adjust or readjust to a different world environment. What are they going to do? And we need to think about that, because all of us got kinfolks that don't have a whole lot, but you love them because that's your family. And are you content to see them beggars in a country that is full of so much wealth? I mean, it was deeply offensive for me to see beggars in China, but China was nowhere near it is today. It was just a backwoods, huge country that had a vision. And its vision has come to pass. But as we look forward, and this is why I said, please pay attention, because Medicaid is going to wind up the safety net if it gets funded. If it does not get funded, prepare for the inevitable, which is these people will have nothing. How does that make you feel? For real. How does that make you feel? Or your next door neighbor may wind up losing their job. And they may hang in and linger on, but you begin to notice things are changing over there. Okay? These are devastating times. And the full story is in motion. We haven't even seen where it's headed. But I'm trying to open up your awareness. Like I said, you can't be upset about stuff you don't even know about. And some people say, I don't want to know. Oh, yes, you do. Because if they're coming for the poor, guess who's next? I'm just being honest. Oh, you think you're going to exempt from this? Nah. You're not going to exempt from this. It's going to be right at your door. Okay? And I know it's in process because of what's happening with the animal population, dogs and cats in shelters. People are giving up their animals. To give up your animals is like a member of your family. But they say it's too much to feed them. I know what's coming. I've got to put aside money for myself. Are you prepared to put aside money for health care? And what does that look like when they can't help you because you don't have proper designation? I know the rule. Oh, it's not a problem until it happens to me. I'm trying to tell you that you may be one of the more fortunate ones to not have to deal with this, but this is upon us. And I will tell you, I'm totally against anything that's going to put one group against another. I do mean that. In America, it is not acceptable to have poverty when you need help. And please stop sounding pious and religious, because Jesus himself said that you are to help the least among you. That's what he said. So if that's not ringing your bell, then fine. But I'm just telling you that's what he said. You got to help people that don't have much to give. And you go from there. You do what's right. Okay? You do what's right. And senators, hear me. You must do what's right. You must. The soul of our country is in balance right now. Are we going to take care of the rich and those that have it all? Are we going to take care of the poor and those who have nothing? Where is the balance? And how do we pay for it? Well, frankly, I'm with FDR. I'm like, you better pay taxes to get this stuff done, because 90% of America does not look like 10% of America. Sorry. But we can get distracted and dismiss, well, we're deporting, we're this. Excuse me, that is an activity. Reprehensible that it is. But you really want to stir up a hornet's nest. You start messing with all these people who have worked their best years and have worked without complaint. And now that they need help, there is none. Not workable. I'm so serious. Not workable. I'm not going to stay on the bandwagon. My purpose was to show you the significance of Medicaid, that it is federal, state-funded care, health care. And it also pays for long-term disability for people that are in nursing homes. Because Medicare does not pay for nursing homes, people. It does not. It pays for health benefits, not long-term care. So unless you have long-term care insurance, you should have a plan B. And if that plan B was Medicaid, then you need to look at your plan C, which is, how am I going to do this for my parents? Some would argue, let them live with you the way they did in the olden days. Well, while that is pleasant as a thought, the majority of Americans are so scattered from their parents, they don't know where to begin. So you want to look at that, and you want to begin to say, how can I work through this? But now you know about Medicaid. It is a phenomenal program. It is. It's not perfect, but it's better than most countries. And on that subject matter, I want you to become incredibly clear that we're not like other countries. There's no shame in that. 200, 300 million people. We're a small country with a ton of money. So how are we going to make it happen? We make it happen by you now being aware, by you now looking at the situation and making choices, and by saying, we're not going with that, and letting your senators know, you better come up with something because elections are coming around, and this is not going to work. This is not going to work, period. It's not going to work. We got to work on something else. We really do. And it has to come from the heart. It really does, or else it's a waste of time. But anyway, I have used up my time for this show on Medicaid, and my hope is that you will watch it again, get clarity. You can go to The Power of Money on YouTube with Michelle Graves and type in Medicaid. You'll get all kinds of information that I've already done shows on. You may want to refresh. You can go that route. In the meantime, I wish you only the best. May God's peace and love abound in your lives with you and your family, children, grandchildren, everybody else is running around. And just know that my commitment remains unchanged to see you thrive in the midst of chaos. Thank you so much, and God bless. Goodbye.